Order. End of question time. The clerk will now proceed to read the order of the day.
Item 1, resumption of debate on the Protection from Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Bill.
The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Were there any clarifications from yesterday evening that anyone would like to pose? Mr. Sariq Fu? Ms. Rahayu Mahzam? It's okay. Perhaps you were watching too much football as well.
My apologies, Speaker.
Please proceed.
Last year, I had the privilege to sit on the Select Committee on Deliberate Online Falsehoods, together with several other members of this House, including Mr. Pritam Singh and Ms. Cha Yong Yong. It was a rigorous process. The committee was appointed in January 2018 and subsequently called for members of the public to submit their thoughts on the causes and consequences of deliberate online falsehoods and suggest countermeasures against the threat. We received 170 submissions from people from all walks of life, including academics, community leaders, think tanks, students, and other individuals. We went through all the submissions and invited 79 of those who made submissions to elaborate on their submission at a public hearing. Over the course of 8 days, we heard oral representations from 65 individuals and representatives of organizations. The committee deliberated on the matter over a period of almost 6 months and eventually produced a 176-page report, not inclusive of the annexes, with 22 recommendations. One of the key thrusts of the recommendations was to disrupt online falsehoods through new legislation which would empower the government to take necessary action. The committee had observed that falsehoods can appear in a broad spectrum of circumstances, from deliberately fabricated content to satire and parodies. They can also have varying degrees of impact, causing minor confusion to threatening national security and dividing societies. The committee emphasized that government intervention should be calibrated in a manner that takes these factors into consideration. I'm heartened that the bill today has taken into account one of the Select Committee's recommendations on the creation of new legislation. In my view, the bill has captured the essence of the committee's recommendation and has done well in calibrating the responses to deliberate online falsehoods. I note that some may not share my view. In the wake of the first reading of the bill, I received feedback, heard and read about concerns from some people of the impact of the new legislation, that the impact the new legislation may have to our ideals of freedom of speech, and how some felt that this bill may have been rushed through without proper consultation. I disagree with these views, but appreciate that my perspective was very much shaped by my experience and what I had learned whilst I was on the Select Committee. It would be impossible to set out my whole experience in this speech, but I would like to touch on several learning points that left a deep impact on me. Firstly, Singapore is highly vulnerable to online falsehoods. Falsehoods have a great potential to deepen fault lines and polarize society. Singapore is one of the most diverse countries in the world. We are small, multiracial, multi-religious, with great digital connectedness. Racial and religious tensions may be inflamed quickly. A Nielsen survey indicated that more Singaporeans access their news over the internet and social media compared to hard copy newspapers. A Business Times report stated that 70% of Singaporeans are active social media users on mobile devices, double the global average of 34%. The same report found that over 3/4 of Singaporeans use social media. In addition, several security experts who presented at the Select Committee pointed out that foreign disinformation can be expected to occur in Singapore. In fact, in private hearings, the committee received evidence that state-sponsored disinformation operations have been carried out against Singapore. targeting friction points in Singapore society and weakening Singapore's will to defend itself is a more attractive strategy than conventional military warfare. Further, the tools for disinformation campaigns are readily available in our region. Secondly, there are real risks of slow drip falsehoods causing long-term damage to society and are difficult to displace if not dealt with quickly. Several experts gave evidence on this issue, including Dr. Ben Nemo of the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab and Dr. Elmi Nikmat, Assistant Professor of Communications and New Media from the National University of Singapore. Falsehoods may play on existing slow burn issues such as simmering communal tensions to create more serious crises in the long run. In particular, Dr. Matthew Matthews from the Institute of Policy Studies warned of low-level misinformation about particular ethnic, religious or immigrant groups on various matters such as their loyalty to Singapore, potential to commit anti-social acts and others. And these could lead to friction within the community. Singapore society has seen such falsehoods. One notorious example is an article by The Real Singapore which falsely reported that a complaint by a Filipino family resulted in commotion between Hindu participants and the police during a Thaipusam procession in 2015. Viral, drip-feed falsehoods may play on slow burn issues. Such lies may not trigger immediate violence, but they can poison debate and irreversibly damage the fabric of a society, like race relations, confidence in public institutions. All these can culminate in violence in the long run. They should not be considered less dangerous, and Singapore cannot afford to be complacent about them. The breakdown of society due to a spread of what may seem like innocuous falsehoods can and will happen if we do not take action to correct and curb them. Thirdly, falsehoods are very, very difficult to combat. Therefore, there is a need to act swiftly and decisively in certain situations. The evidence before the Select Committee pointed to 3 difficulties: human cognitive tendencies, weakness of truth compared with falsehoods, and the further and faster reach of falsehoods than the truth. Basically, in short, we believe what we want to believe. The truth is not as salacious as falsehood, so it's harder to believe the truth, and falsehoods can go viral much faster than the correction. Significant number of representatives, both experts and laypersons, called for measures to swiftly stem the spread of online falsehoods. They were of the view that such measures are vital because of the speed at which online falsehoods can cause irreparable damage. Some of them explained why longer-term or indirect measures such as fact-checking and public education were not enough to deal with online falsehoods. The Select Committee agreed. In light of the things that I have learned, I'm therefore pleased with the calibrated approach taken in this bill. The government needs to be empowered to act quickly to falsehoods to quickly react to falsehoods if there is an adverse impact to the public. In certain circumstances, there cannot be any delay and the truth has to be brought to light immediately. Mr. Speaker, in Malay, please. Singapura amat terdedah kepada ancaman maklumat palsu yang mampu untuk merosakkan hubungan antara kaum dan agama yang berbeza. Kesan buruk daripada maklumat yang tersebar luas sukar untuk diperbaiki. Maka itu, pada situasi tertentu, pemerintah perlu diberi kuasa untuk mengekang penyebaran maklumat palsu tersebut. Ramai yang menyuarakan kebimbangan bagaimana perundangan baru ini boleh menjejaskan kebebasan masyarakat untuk bersuara. Cuba kita renungkan sejenak, apa yang kita mahu untuk masyarakat kita? Kita mahukan masyarakat yang bijak berfikir dan mampu mengadakan perbincangan yang sihat. Ini hanya boleh berlaku sekira adanya ruang yang bebas daripada fitnah dan kepalsuan. Kerana kalau tidak, segala apa yang dibahaskan tidak akan membawa kebaikan. Ada juga menyoalkan kuasa yang diberikan pemerintah dalam rang undang-undang ini yang dianggap amat luas. Ini sebenarnya tidak benar. Pemerintah perlu memastikan informasi itu palsu dan akan menjejas kepentingan awam. Pendapat dan pandangan yang berdasarkan fakta benar tidak termasuk dalam kategori kepalsuan. Pemerintah juga boleh memberi arahan untuk pembetulan disampingkan dengan maklumat palsu itu. Atau dalam situasi yang lebih teruk, maklumat palsu itu boleh diturunkan. Sekiranya seseorang itu tidak bersetuju dengan arahan itu, beliau boleh ke mahkamah untuk mendapat ketetapan. Pemerintah tidak punya hak muktamad untuk menetapkan sama ada hal itu benar atau palsu. Pada pendapat saya, ada kalibrasi dalam pendekatan rang undang-undang ini dan saya rasa ini adalah pendekatan yang baik. Mr. Speaker, in English, I'm happy to note that corrections will be the primary response and there is no punishment for the majority of cases if there is no malicious conduct. I'm satisfied that there are sufficient safeguards in the form of a recourse to the court in the event there is an objection to the allegation of falsehood. On this note, though, I appreciate the layperson's concerns about the cost and complexities involved in seeking recourse from the High Court. I had intended to seek clarification on this, but I note that in his opening speech, the Minister for Law had explained the simplified process. I believe this should address the people's concerns. At the end of the day, it is clear from the various explanations that the Ministry has given through news articles and videos that the bill does not affect ordinary Singaporeans. Only those who act deliberately will face criminal consequences. Such persons must not only know that the statement that they are sending is wrong, they must also know that such statement will undermine public interest. So it is not a criminal offence to forward or share messages without checking for accuracy first, although I think you should. I feel that ordinary Singaporeans should be happy to be warned about falsehoods and to receive corrections. This will help to build a community of more discerning internet users. It may be useful to continue to guide and educate the public about this new legislation. Perhaps the Minister can consider efforts to educate Singaporeans on what type of falsehoods will be covered under the bill so that they can better identify and avoid spreading these falsehoods. On this note, I would like to highlight that the Select Committee had recommended a multi-pronged approach to help deal with the issues of deliberate online falsehoods. It is very important to educate the public to help equip them with skills to tell false from fact and to build healthy online habits. Over the longer term, I believe that the new legislation, along with a suite of non-legislative measures put in place by the government, will have the effect of cultivating an informed, discerning population. Mr. Speaker, I support this bill.